The cheating problem on chess.com makes the website absolutely unplayable. Although I'm fairly certain there are still issues in Blitz and Bullet, I'm only going to be talking about Rapid today because it's the time control I primarily play. Around 3 months ago, I made a video because I got to 2,300 ELO in Rapid. I explained everything I did to reach the milestone and all of the changes I made to my game to achieve it. Up until that video, I only had minor problems with cheaters. I would verse a cheater once maybe every 10 games, and when you're being refunded for all of the lost ELO, which I was, this really isn't a problem. I can never fault the imperfection of any anti-cheat, because it's not always going to be perfect, and I can understand that. But once I reached 2,300 ELO, everything changed. Before we do start, I want to set a few things straight. Firstly, in this video, I am only speaking on behalf of the Rapid time control. It's the main time control I play, and in other time controls I really don't notice this issue as much. Secondly, cheaters on chess.com failing to be banned is not due to some conspiracy. I have seen zero evidence to support chess.com favoring paid members when it comes to cheaters on their website. This is a myth, and to me it seems like a catalyst for people to hate on chess.com. This is also not to say that chess.com doesn't deserve criticism, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so let's begin with my last 100 Rapid games on chess.com so we have a decent sample size. I also understand that I look a little bit like Vladimir Kramnik here, but bear with me. Let's start with the first game in our selection. My opponent in this game was not cheating, but I want to point out a few things that will come in useful later. First of all, his account is older than mine. Typically, my rule of thumb is that if their account predates my account, they're probably not cheating, as it would have been difficult to evade the anti-cheat for over 4 years, especially over 2,847 games. Secondly, their recent streak of games is realistic. There's no absurd winning streak in their last 50 or so games, and if there was an abnormal win streak, you should expect to find an equally long losing streak somewhere too. On top of this, there's no major inconsistencies with their accuracies. If every game was played at even as low as 80% accuracy, this is alarming. If a lot of games are played at 90% accuracy, this is certain cheating. Thirdly, their accuracy within the game was believable, and they didn't find any outrageously hyper-accurate moves. They played a 75% accuracy in this drawn game, and importantly, their game phase accuracy wasn't suspicious either. It's important to take game phase accuracy into account because some cheaters play badly specifically in the opening to lower their overall accuracy, and then play perfectly in the second 2 game phases. I should also mention that a single one of these indicators does not mean that somebody is cheating. However, if multiple factors do exist on someone's account, it should ring some alarm bells. I really hope you remember the last thing I mentioned. Some cheaters play badly specifically in the opening to lower their overall accuracy and then play perfectly in the second 2 game phases. Because in this very next game, I played a cheater who was playing their own moves in this opening and blundered their queen on move 9. This is literally impossible to happen at this level. 2,200 Rapid players do not make these kinds of mistakes. Of course, my opponent was not banned for this game as the sample size is too small, but we can look at his account just like we did for my previous opponent and see all of the same warning signs. Firstly, his account was much younger than mine. It was opened on the 25th of June 2024, making it just 31 days old when we played this game. This makes it reasonable for the anti-cheat to not have picked up on his cheating yet. Secondly, we can look at their recent streak of games. As you can see, in their last 7 Rapid games, they won 6 of them. Even in the game they lost, they got 82% accuracy. Quite hilariously, in the game previous, they lost to another cheater, and weirdly resigned in the game before that with 97% accuracy. For reference, in my last 100 games, my highest win streak was 3 wins. Because the game was only 9 moves, we won't look at what exactly happened in our actual game, but I think you get the picture here. We're going to quickly skip ahead to one of my more recent games to outline closet cheating. Closet cheating is when somebody who is already very good at chess only cheats in specific moments in a game. Sometimes closet cheaters won't cheat at all in a game because they're already so good they are more than capable of winning entire games by themselves. However, they typically cheat to 100 or 200 ELO higher rated than they already are. Usually, if they lose a game, they'll cheat in the next one to even things up, and that's why they're so difficult to catch. So let's look at this opponent. Firstly, although his account is younger than mine, it's not crazily suspicious. It's almost 2 years old at this point, which should be enough time for the anti-cheat to detect them. They also have 1,000 games on chess.com, which is enough to make you think that if they were cheating, chess.com would have noticed by now. Secondly, if we look at their recent streak of games, it's completely normal. As I mentioned before, closet cheaters are good at chess, and sometimes they play full games on their own. This results in a very realistic streak of games that wouldn't seem suspicious to anyone and could not be differentiated to a legitimate player. Thirdly, let's take a look at the game. In this game, both myself and my opponent scored high 90% accuracies. This is quite common when the result is a draw and when the game didn't have too many moves. It's also worth noting this game was very theoretical, meaning the first 15 or so moves were played perfectly as is. For this game, because it's so tricky to tell if somebody is closet cheating, we're going to look at the game a little bit closer and not rely on statistics. Firstly, both myself and my opponent both got 96% accuracy in this game, which is very common for draws, especially if the theory is very deep. I'm going to quickly skip through the theory because that's not what we're actually interested in here, and we go through a relatively long Sicilian theory line. It's an open Sicilian. This is not too crazy. This is a very common line. I'm not surprised that somebody knows this, but they play bishop c4 and I play queen b6, and the idea is we're hitting this and we're also threatening knight takes e4. For example, if my opponent castles here, we just have queen takes b2, and if they defend the b2 square with rook b1, now we have knight takes e4, and if they take with their knight, we discover the attack of our bishop. If that bishop takes, now we've won the other bishop and we're simply up a pawn. However, there are some defenses to this, and in this game my opponent plays a3. If you take on b2 now, knight e4 is just a queen trap. Your queen is gone, so you cannot take the pawn on b3. Similarly, if you take on e4, the opponent is going to dive in with knight d5. This attacks the queen, and if you try and take the pawn here, they're going to play f takes, and you're just down a piece. It's worth noting that I am out of theory here, so I spend a little bit of time and come up with the best move, e6. This stops the move knight d5, and now knight takes e4 is back on the cards. I've decided that now the opening theory is over. You guys can see the engine evaluation, so you guys can see the top engine moves in every move of this game. So of course, my opponent continues by castling. Of course, I continue with my plan of knight takes e4. If they take here, I'm going to take their knight, and this is very good for me. I'm just up a pawn. But of course, in this position, my opponent finds the best move, which is knight a4. There are two moves in this position. One of them is the very engine move queen c7, and after pawn takes, you take this knight here, and if they take back with the bishop, you're winning the bishop back like this. But the more natural response is the one that I went with, which is queen a5, just attacking the knight whilst your knight is under attack. After the natural f takes and queen takes, my opponent finds the best move in the position again, which is b4. So I decide to trade off in the center and play b6, trying to activate my bishop along the long diagonal. After bishop takes, king takes, queen check, and king g8, my opponent flies forward with h4. I want you guys to understand the premise of a move like h4. You are not coming for a draw if you are playing the move h4. A draw is not in your mind. You are attacking me, you're going to get your bishop into the game, the two rooks, and your queen, and you are coming for my king. That is what h4 is. h4 is not, hey, you want to draw in a couple moves? H is, I'm going to win this game. I played an inaccuracy here, and I played the move h5, and of course my opponent knows why that's a bad move, because he plays the move g4. The idea is, if I take here, they're going to play h5, and suddenly my king's defenses look very bad. There are not really many good moves in this position. White is just a lot better, but the idea is you should let white take your pawn and take back with your g-pawn, and maybe step to h7 and open up the file for your rook. After g4, I try to immediately bring my queen back into the game because it's very offside on h4, and I want to bring my bishop to b7 and maybe get some counterplay on this diagonal. My opponent plays g takes h, and I play bishop b7, trying to go for this same idea. If my opponent takes this pawn, I'm actually kind of happy because my king is relatively safe, and suddenly I've got a way to liquidate the position, and maybe I will be able to get a draw from this position where I really should have been very much worse. Of course, though, my opponent sees this and plays the best move, bishop d3. In this position, again, there are not really any great moves for the black pieces, but here I play f4, and the idea is if you take, I'm going to checkmate you. Just checkmate in one. So I try to see maybe he's not playing all of the moves by himself, but he obviously does not take there, and instead he plays queen e5. Now I play g takes h, and the idea is I want to step onto h7 and bring my rooks into the game. Again, if I can liquidate the material on the board and get a draw, I will happily do that, but my opponent plays a very interesting move here. Now I want you to look at the top engine moves. There is one that stands out. It's king h2, right? It is king h2. And all of the moves that have been played up until this point, it's very clear white is going for a win, right? Everything that you have seen, white wants to win. But my opponent goes to play king h2 and mouse slips. He plays king h1. And because he was not thinking for himself, the engine has an entirely new game plan for him. Because I play the move king f7, the idea is to go rook g8, and after the move king h1, which was obviously to bring the rooks to the open file, of course it's a bad move because you cannot take here because of this pin. You should have stepped onto the square that is not on the same diagonal as a queen and a bishop. He sacrifices the rook. Look at the time. 756, 753. His entire game plan was flipped on its head. It was obvious that he wanted to come to my king, but in 3 seconds, he decided he wants a draw. Not only that he wants a draw, but he knows this is a draw. Like, if you sacrifice your rook in this fashion, any legitimate player thinks about it. He's got 8 minutes. If he wants a draw, he can spend 4 minutes safely calculating, making sure that, okay, I'm sacrificing my rook. Am I sure I'm drawn here? Like, this is not an easy sequence to find. I play pawn takes, of course, and he plays rook g1. You know, if you play a move like this, I've got king e7, my king gets away. You have to find the move rook g1. So he finds rook g1, and I play rook g8, trying to trade off the rooks. Of course, he checks me. I block with my queen. He checks me again. I start running my queen. Checks again. The importance is your rooks are connected, by the way. And if you play this and something like rook takes, now we've got queen takes h4, and suddenly we're winning again because this bishop is very strong. But of course, he is not going to do that. He's going to go for the draw. He gets rook d1 check, king c7, queen check, king b1. He takes my rook, and this is a forced draw because after queen takes h4, there are some drawing lines. I think we agreed to a draw here. Sorry, I played bishop takes e4. There are multiple drawing lines, though queen takes h4 is also drawn. I played bishop takes h4, and after king g1, I played queen g6, and I get to this position, and he offers me the draw. He offered me a draw in this position. We didn't repeat moves or anything. He offered me a draw in this position. From the evaluation of this game, and from looking at the player's account, it is undoubtedly obvious that they are cheating. However, an account like this will never be banned from chess.com. Chess.com have made a public effort in recent years to reduce the amount of false bans they give to players, which means that any accounts that are up in the air and maybe are cheating but also maybe are not cheating are given full immunity and will never be banned. Even though this cheater's account looks somewhat believable, this is one of the most obvious closet cheaters you'll get. The only reason I was able to know for sure that he was cheating was because he inexplicably changed his entire game plan and riskily sacrificed his rook, all while calculating in 3 seconds. I understand that people will know deep Sicilian theory, and I will not call them out for cheating for that. I also understand that people will find very good moves. I will also not call them out for that. But in this game, my opponent clearly meant to play the top engine move, mouse slipped, and then suddenly found the best way to force a draw in this position by sacrificing their rook, all while needing only 3 seconds to calculate it. Not only that, but my position was still objectively worse. I had a weak position, and even though the engine's evaluation may give it even, there are still easy ways to come and attack my king. There is simply no alternate explanation for this, which makes me 100% sure that my opponent was cheating. The most depressing part about this is that there are people cheating under our noses that are significantly smarter than this guy and will never be banned. They are cheating in a way that is not only undetectable by chess.com, but undetectable by a player of my strength. You might be wondering why we looked at those 3 specific games. The reason is that chess.com banning someone for cheating is not the seal of approval that they were cheating. For example, if chess.com wanted to, they could turn off their anti-cheat completely and claim that they have reduced cheaters on their website by 100%. So hopefully my analysis of those 3 accounts can show you that I can fairly evaluate someone's account and tell whether or not they were cheating with a decent amount of certainty. This way we can actually see how many of my last 100 opponents were actually using engine assistance. Not only that, but I also don't want to analyze 100 games all in this video because it would be several hours long. On top of this, some of the players that I versed didn't obviously cheat against me, but they did cheat against some of the players in the pool at a similar time. This still means that you versed the cheater, but you need to go ahead and analyze the other games that they played as well. So I did what any sane person would do, and I wrote a massive spreadsheet. This took me around 2 hours to properly fill in, and then another 10 hours to make these 2 unimpressive charts. And by make, I mean forced someone else to do it because I couldn't figure out how to do it, and ended up with this very useful chart. As you can see, according to this chart, for every game I played on chess.com, I played a game on chess.com? Yeah, that's not super helpful. Also, there will be a link to this spreadsheet in the description below if you would like to take a closer look. But now is what you've all been waiting to hear. How many of my last 100 opponents were cheating? Well, let's go through all of the important information and look at some of the patterns in the data. Firstly, the 100 games take place over the last 2 months. It's also very important to mention that I reported every single one of those games regardless of if I thought they were cheating or not. Because I'm a chess.com partner, if I think somebody was cheating in a game I played, I can report them directly to the Fair Play team instead of just reporting them on the website. The reason that this is important is because the report button on the website only works if multiple people do it. The The report button on chess.com is far too accessible for it to take every single report seriously. People report counts that weren't cheating all the time because they were salty that they were lost and they just want to report their opponent for it. For this reason, chess.com needs multiple reports if you're hitting the report button in a game to give some sort of priority to the actual report. But because I have direct access to chess.com's fair play team, this wasn't an issue, and every game should have been looked at by the anti-cheat. So in the last 100 games, chess.com thinks I versed 11 cheaters. This means on average, I probably had around 70 to 80 elo refunded to my account. It's not great that 1.1 out of 10 players that you verse in the pool are going to be cheating in Rapid. Only 10% of your games being against cheaters doesn't seem too bad. However, these are only the accounts that chess.com banned. When we actually look at how many games were against cheaters, it gets a lot worse. Assuming my evaluation of these 100 accounts were fair, I versed 29 cheaters out of the 100 games. Not only does that mean that chess.com misses 66% of cheaters on their website, it also means that 33% of games that you play in the Rapid time control will be against cheaters. That is 1 in every 3 games. To make matters worse, there were times in this streak of 100 games where I versed 5 cheaters consecutively. Now I should mention that I'm not insinuating that all of these cheaters were cheating against me, but by looking at their accounts, it is very obvious that they were cheating in the games leading up to and following my encounter with them. This still doesn't mean they were cheating against me, but it does open up the possibility that they were. And even if we assume that they weren't cheating against me, they definitely were cheating against other people, and they weren't punished by chess.com for it. I hope it's very clear that I was unbiased in my selection of who was cheating and who was not cheating by the fact that I actually beat 50% of the players that were cheating. There are multiple reasons that somebody might beat a cheater, and for context, I'll list them below. First of all, they might not have cheated specifically against you. They might have cheated in other games, but not in the game that you played. They also might not have cheated enough to beat you, like the game we looked at earlier, where he certainly was intending to cheat against me, but he played his own moves, blundered his queen, and then resigned the game. There is also the possibility that they cheated against you too slowly and allowed you to flag them. Take this game, for example, which was in the 100 games, where I got to this position, look at the clocks, yes, look at the clocks, and this is how I won the game. Incredible. So what is the problem? You might be thinking, if I beat 50% of the cheaters and I lose to 50% of the cheaters, surely this cancels out, right? You're winning elo and you're losing elo and everything is fair. In a weird way, this is true, but let's quickly go over a few things that make it not quite so. First of all, let's look at momentum. Rapid chess relies heavily on momentum. If you don't take advantage of when you're on good form, you simply won't gain large amounts of elo. If you win and then lose and then win and then lose, you're only going to stay in one place. Natural momentum means that on your day, you can beat literally anyone that you will get paired up with, and there are no exceptions. If even 15% of the games we play are against cheaters that will 100% beat us, this momentum means nothing. If you're on red hot form, you can be spear tackled by someone that is just using an engine, and the momentum goes away. There's also rating refunds. Even if you do get your rating refunded when you verse a cheater, you're still not breaking even. Each Rapid game takes an average of 15 minutes to play, and sometimes the reviewing process can take up to 10 minutes. So even if your rating is given back, which according to my data is only 33% of the time, you've still wasted 25 minutes of your life against someone that was cheating. This might not matter in Blitz or Bullet, but when you're playing Rapid and you can only fit in a few Rapid games per day, this might be 20, 30, or 40% of the games that you fit into one session. It's also important to consider natural play, because this is not a natural way to play chess. Just accepting that there are cheaters that you will lose to and cheaters that you will beat is not a natural way to improve at chess. If I am versing a blatant cheater, there is absolutely nothing I'm going to learn from the game. It's like a beginner chess player that knows nothing about the rules of chess practicing against a grandmaster. The skill gap is far too big for you to actually improve. You might think that 2,300 rating is very high, but compared to an engine, it's absolutely nothing. It also just sets a terrible precedent for when you actually go into a game. If you know that 33% of the time you are going to face a cheater, you go into virtually every game thinking that your opponent might be cheating. We also know on average 71% of the games against 2024 accounts were cheating. So whenever you pair up against someone with an account made in 2024, you may as well abort the game. I won't go on about this for too long, but it's also worth mentioning if you have the white pieces and you need to abort the game, in the following game, you will not get the white pieces again, you will get the black pieces. This isn't a huge problem, but it is still a problem. So what can be done to fix this? There are multiple things that can be done, but let's start with the easiest fixes first. Let's look at account closure. Firstly, it's important to understand that if a player closes their account by themselves, which any player can do by the way, if they were cheating, their opponents will never be refunded the rating because the anti-cheat can't ban a closed account. There is literally zero reason for that to exist. In my data, there were 2 accounts that closed their own accounts and were not banned. They were definitely cheating, but they couldn't be banned, so the anti-cheat never even got an opportunity to give the rating back to the people that lost it because they closed their accounts. So the first fix is very simple. Make it so closed accounts can be banned and their rating can be refunded to the people that deserve it. Now let's look at the 30-day threshold. Another lazy feature by chess.com is the fact that if a player is banned, only players that have played that player in the last 30 days receive a refund. So even if someone has a single game back in, let's say 2022 that they cheated in, and they get banned for that, only people in the last 30 days will receive a refund. That is even if there was zero evidence to suggest that they were cheating in the last 30 days. I can kind of see why chess.com might make this a feature, but it still doesn't make a lot of sense. I assume that chess.com doesn't want to be giving back thousands of elo across hundreds of people every time somebody is banned. But that does not mean that the current system is logical at all. First, it's worth noting that according to the data, 17 accounts made in 2024 were cheating, 6 accounts made in 2023 were cheating, 3 accounts made in 2022 were cheating, 2 accounts made in 2021 were cheating, and 1 account made in 2019 was cheating. This proves that people that have played on chess.com for an extended amount of time don't just suddenly start cheating out of nowhere. But even still, we can take this cheater's account for example. He's played 1,206 rapid games on chess.com, and if we assume all of his wins are illegitimate, we would be refunding a total of 4,025 elo. This may seem like a lot of elo, but it's only 7 elo per person. Whilst it may seem like we're inflating the elo of the pool, we're only re-inflating it because it was deflated in the first place by the cheater. Even if you do disagree with all players being refunded if they verse a cheater, surely there is a better option than this 30-day threshold. To me, it seems like a lazy fix to the problem. But this is all well and good if we can successfully catch the cheaters, but the data shows that 66% of cheaters on chess.com face no punishment. Well, it seems like this is a problem with higher rated chess. You can't quite expect an anti-cheat to say with 100% accuracy that this person was cheating when it's even very difficult for a human to identify it. At lower levels, it's much obvious. For example, at the 1400 level, if a 1400 plays several top engine moves in a row, the likelihood is they're cheating because no 1400 player does that. I do also understand that on chess.com, that always doesn't happen. The anti-cheat doesn't always ban those 1400 accounts, and you still get cheaters no matter what rating you're at. But in terms of high-level chess, when everyone is making incredible moves anyway, how can we differentiate between a cheater and a legitimate player? First of all, the anti-cheat should be heightened in a way that it can actually deal with these high-rated games. It should take into account the clear warning signs that a human like you and I look at when looking for cheaters. It should look at the account's age, the account's win percentage, the account's win streaks, the account's average accuracy, and the account's average move time. There are also plenty of other things that it should look at, but I feel like it mustn't. And before anyone suggests that maybe we should start a verified pool for Rapid, this will not work. It already takes me 5 to 10 minutes to get a pairing in the Rapid pool on chess.com because I'm at 2,300, so adding an extra step for players, another hoop to jump through, is going to mean that you're going to have to wait upwards of 20 minutes to find a game. That is unless chess.com heavily promotes rapid chess alongside this change. If it's not promoted, I would genuinely rather just play Blitz or go onto Lead Chess. You might be wondering what the point of this video is, and to be honest, it's to do something better than nothing. It's very clear to me through some of my friends that confronting chess.com privately about this is not going to fix anything. It seems that every time someone complains, we're promised change on the website, we get a state of play, and then nothing happens. In fact, things get worse. I genuinely think that unless the issue is spoken about by someone like Gotham Chess or Hikaru, nothing will happen. And even if there's a small chance that somebody that can actually do something about this watches this video, it's worth any of the repercussions I face as a chess.com partner making this video. I would say I hope you all enjoyed the video, but to be honest, there's not really anything to enjoy. It's very depressing, and I wish I didn't have to make a video like this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next video.